Greetings, YouTube. As I've said in the past, if you have any kind of a category of anything, you're always going to have the one thing in that category that's your favorite. When it comes to movies, we all have our favorite. I have my favorite Christmas movie, which is We're No Angels with Humphrey Bogart, Aldo Ray, Peter Ustinov. My favorite comedy, Animal House. But of all the movies ever made, of all the ones I've seen, and I've seen a lot of movies in my day, this one is my favorite. Blade Runner with Harrison Ford. Based on the book Android's Dream of Electric Sheep, which is a good story and only vaguely has anything to do with the movie at all, I think. But that's alright. What Ridley Scott has done here, what he's crafted, what he's presented to us, is a work of art. Something so rarely seen. Very few directors can pull it off, and he's one of them. He may never do something like this again, but that's alright. He's done this, and this was one of the greatest films ever made. I once heard it described as the most perfect, imperfect film ever made, and they're correct. There are flaws from the get-go. There are inconsistencies, there's confusion. I believe that there are 8 different cuts of this movie available in the world in different places and released at different times. It can almost be considered a work in progress, even though this one is called the final cut. We'll see, I guess. Or maybe they'll do one after Ridley Scott dies. Who knows? Maybe the legacy of his descendants would like to get some money off of it. But I can see that. I can remember seeing this the first time when it was released, and being utterly and absolutely dumbfounded in its beauty, in its majesty, in its scope. I mean, it was just so broad. It seemed so grand. The film itself came off like the giant pyramids and skyscrapers depict. It seemed as vast as the world presented to you in the film. A slightly run-down world, a decaying world. A world that isn't perfect. It wasn't Star Trek. It wasn't Flash Gordon. It was earthy and broken, with bits and pieces missing, and with the people all too flawed and real, even the ones that had been genetically engineered. It was a thing of beauty and wonder. It was a masterpiece in the proper definition of that term. And I can think of no actor in the world that could have played the character of Deckard better than Harrison Ford. It was just the perfect role at that perfect time in his life. He was at the right age. He had the right level of bravado to pull it off. Now, I'm of the school of thought that the voiceovers done by Harrison Ford in that wonderfully deadpan style are important, because I think that they really set it in my head in that film noir style. I love that narration. I like hearing what's going on inside someone's head. I know Ford didn't want to do them, and because of that, the disdain that he read those lines with was perfect. He may have hated every second of it, but he made that film, in my head, the best thing that's ever been put on film. And there aren't any bad acting jobs in this movie. There are no throwaway characters. Everyone and everywhere in it is just one seamless, endless thing of beauty. Now, like I said, it's flawed. The scene where his police detective boss describes what he's going to do was kind of absurd. Now, he's explaining what skin jobs, what replicants are, to the audience. And unfortunately, to make it seem kind of sensical within the context of the film, he has to explain it to Deckard, which is dumb. Deckard knows what they are. And of course, there's always the wonderful mystery, is Deckard himself a skin job? Now, I've read definitive information both ways, and the reality is, it doesn't matter. Whether he is or isn't really the point. He does a man's job. He does what he has to do, he gets the task done. And at the end, he decides that humanity is more than just his job. It is ultimately a story of redemption. And that is one of the reasons that this film is so important to me. Because redemption is all about what I am about. I'm trying to redeem myself every day in every way. And I'll keep doing that. I don't think I'm ever going to get it right. But Deckard, even if only for a minute, he can know he did it. He redeemed himself. He won. It could be a Pyrrhic victory. It could be a short-lived victory. But it was a victory nonetheless. Now, this is the film that introduced me to Rutger Hauer, and I really love him in this film. Again, the perfect role. And later, when I discovered that he ad-libbed, he wrote that final speech on that roof in the rain as he lets go of that pigeon, that dove. It was just the greatest cherry there was on top of the greatest sundae you could have. The knowledge that those were his words. That was beautiful. I know I'm grinning like a fool, but I just can't talk about this movie without being happy. I actually haven't watched it in a while, and I should probably watch it again. I know I'm gushing like a fanboy, and I'm sorry. But this really is my favorite movie. I've seen it probably more than any other film I've ever watched. I'll probably see it more times before I die than I will see any other film. And that's okay. Because every time I see it, I take something else away from it. And I enjoy it a little more. And I'm glad I spent the time. And you know, it's all about entertainment. And so this film, for me, is the best entertainment dollar I've ever spent in my whole life.